What is the strangest mystery that is still unsolved? An unknown group of people broke into an FBI building, and no one has found out who they are. But the best part of the story is, they did it by leaving a sticky note that said "Do not lock the door tonight," and it worked. Who was Perseus? From 1943 to 1946, the Soviet Union had a high-level spy in the Manhattan Project. Codenamed Perseus, this spy was a scientist at the White Sands missile testing site in NM, and the main research facilities in Los Alamos. Perseus saw pretty much the entire project start to finish, giving the Russians everything they needed to get to work on their own bomb. The fact that they were able to do so within 4 years of the end of World War II when their nations was still devastated is proof positive that Perseus helped a great deal. And to top it all off, Perseus was never caught or positively identified. The USS Cyclops, a coal ship, disappeared with 306 men. The largest U.S. Navy loss of life that didn't involve combat. This is my favorite weird and barely known one. Back in 2013, an unknown group assaulted a power substation in California. By all appearances it was pretty sophisticated, scouted firing positions, all casings wiped of prints. They targeted transformers so they'd take time to overheat before triggering any alarms, also knew exactly when the police would arrive. No suspect or motive to this day. They also cut some fiber optic cables in a vault nearby. Conspiracy types think it was a dry run by Russia or possibly China to see how effective an attack like that might be. What on earth happened to the Trump family? So it's this Australian family who owned a berry farm. Somehow Mr. and Mrs. Trump and their 3 grown kids developed the belief that they weren't safe and they needed to flee their farm without cell phones or anything traceable, credit cards, etc. It sounds like the oldest son wasn't sold on whatever it was that led them to flee. He brought his phone, but eventually it got tossed from the car. He ended up bailing first and taking a train home. From there the rest of the family slowly separated and suffered various degrees of emotional breaks. The 2 girls stole a car. Somehow they got separated and one made it home, but the other was found on the floor in the backseat of some guy's car in a catatonic state. He spotted her after he started down the road. Eventually the parents were found wandering around aimlessly. Fortunately they were all okay physically, but WTF happened? Was someone actually after them? Were they delusional? As far as I know the family hasn't released any updates. The Boötes Void is a region of outer space that contains no galaxies or stars and we don't know why. The Kongalapatan Ladak. This region lies in the disputed border of India and China, and is truly the most inaccessible places in the world. In 1962, the armies of both the countries were engaged in a severe conflict. After this, both China and India entered into an agreement according to which none will be allowed to patrol the region, but can keep an eye on it from a distance. After this, a popular belief floated that the Kongalapatan Ladak is a hideous base of UFOs. The area has forever remained a no-man's land due to its territorial limits and is the reason why the UFOs have chosen it as their operational base. Reportedly, many have seen these UFOs and both the Indian and Chinese governments are aware of these developments. In 2006, Google Maps baffled the world with some images that looked like military facilities, but till date the whole issue remains mysterious and unexplainable. The 1987 Arkansas murders of Don Henry and Kevin Ives. And every single possible witness surrounding them. Like Keith McKiskell, who claimed to be on the tracks that night. He talked to the special prosecutor about what he saw, then realized the prosecutor was dirty. After coming forth as a witness he began saying goodbye to his loved ones and planned his own funeral arrangements. Shortly after he was stabbed 113 times. As someone from Chicago who loves /r/unresolved mysteries, I would say the Max Headroom broadcast signal intrusion, and I don't think we will ever find out who is behind it. It's been over 30 years and we still have no idea who was behind that incredibly bizarre hijack. There was a thread a while ago of someone that thought they had figured it out that seemed very possible, but it was updated and they were ruled out as suspects. Malaysian Flight 370 Asha degree. Girl leaves her house in the middle of the night during a storm and disappeared. The only problem is that she was terrified of thunder and lightning and had no motive for leaving because her home life was fine. Then her clothes and backpack were found a year later in an abandoned construction site. The Tamam Shud case, also known as the mystery of the Somerton Man, is an unsolved case of an unidentified man found dead at 6:30 a.m., December 1, 1948, on the Somerton Park beach, just south of Adelaide, South Australia. The case is named after the Persian phrase Tamam Shud, meaning ended or finished, which was printed on a scrap of paper found months later in the fob pocket of the man's trousers. The scrap had been torn from the final page of a copy of Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, authored by 12th-century poet Omar Khayyam. Tamam was misspelt as Taman in many early reports, and this error has often been repeated, leading to confusion about the name in the media. At the start of lots of chapters of the Quran there are mysterious groups of letters. No one knows what they mean, although there are lots of theories. What happened to Brian Schaffer? This happened in my hometown. This med student went to a bar with friends and then fully disappeared off the face of the earth. Death of Ray Rivera. Found dead in a meeting room in a hotel, fell through the roof. The last call he received was from his office, but the company placed all employees under a gag order so no one can talk to police. In 1994, close to 100 school children, 60 on record, described seeing a disc-shaped craft land behind their school during morning break time in Ruwa, Zimbabwe. Many of them interacted with beings that fit the gray alien description, with the children receiving what is described as some sort of telepathic communication. They all still stick to their stories today. Maura Murray and the Springfield 3. Would love both of the missing persons cases to be solved in my lifetime. Also, a local guy went missing after a car accident in 2011. Would like answers on that as well. The whereabouts of the last Gestapo chief Heinrich Müller. The last verified sighting of him was in Berlin roughly 3 days before it fell. He had stated he knew full well what the Russians did to prisoners and he had no intentions of being captured. As chief of the Gestapo he more than likely had access to foreign documents as well as ways to replicate them. Both the CIA and the KGB spent time looking for him but no trace has ever been found. The Cancer Paradox. It's about creatures like elephants and blue whale and how they don't get cancer when they should be more prone to it. In 1977 we received a radio signal from outer space that lasted about 72 seconds. To this day, we still do not know where it originated from. The identity of and what happened to D.B. Cooper. A man on a plane called himself D.B. Cooper and claimed to have a bomb-in-use suitcase. He took the flight crew hostage and when he got the money he asked for he had the flight crew start flying again. Eventually he jumped out of the plane with a couple of parachutes and the money. No one knows where he went or if he even survived. The identity of Jack the Ripper. The Lady of the Dunes. No one knows who she is. It's a pretty crazy story. Who killed Jeffrey Epstein? The Max Headroom signal hijacking in Chicago. This was a weird one and never solved. What and who exactly wrote the Voynich manuscript? Lost Girls of Panama. Who killed John Benet Ramsey? A 8-year-old kid says he was killed with an axe. The kid brought them to the exact location and after some digging they found an axe and remains. The kid tell the police who killed him and after interrogation he admits to killing someone. No one knows how the kid knew all this. That one where there was a shooting at a gender reveal party only for it to turn out that the person throwing the party had faked the pregnancy. I just want to know why for so many things. Epstein and the global billionaire political pedophile child sex trafficking ring. The Overtown Bridge. It's a bridge in Scotland where dogs always unexplainably jump off. It's very strange and nobody knows why they do this. Dogs who survived reportedly walked back up and jumped off again. They even had to put up a warning sign to keep your dog on a leash and to watch them. A dog psychologist says maybe it's because of certain scents or animals down below, but most people have disagreed this theory. It's fucking weird. Whatever happened to that missing Malaysian flight? It just took a couple of crazy turns and then completely disappeared from the radar. I think Amelia Earhart disappearing was pretty strange. I love cold cases. There's something so creepy yet so fascinating about an unsolved murder, especially if it was a high-profile case or a case that happened a long time ago. My personal favorite cold case is the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson because it was both high-profile and happened over 20 years ago, yet it remains unsolved to this day. It's my favorite cold case to research, and I hope to live to see the case solved and the murderer brought to justice. The Hinterkaifeck murders, super creepy, and the fact that there was evidence the murderers were in the house watching the family for a while before killing them just totally freaks me out. Young children reincarnation stories that are amazing and very hard to disprove factually because of the very odd sequence of belief. There's several very good cases, one with twin girls and another with a young boy. Event. I can't recall their names off the top of my head, but a Google search would probably yield the info quickly if anyone is interested in reading up on it. Spontaneous human combustion. It is a real thing, or at least there is some kind of phenomenon that has occurred through documented and even eyewitnessed cases. The strangest part is that the fires burn hot enough to completely destroy the body, yet the surrounding environment experiences little damage. Though there are many theories, we don't know how it actually happens. It is extremely rare. The podcast Unexplained Mysteries did a good 2-part episode on it. Flight 19 of December 5, 1945. 5 bomber craft on a routine training run became lost while heading back and eventually disappeared entirely. Audio has them saying that they thought they had ended up over the Florida Keys, but wind could not have allowed that. Even more interesting is the fact the rescue craft dispatched to locate them also disappeared. The double-slit experiment and wave-particle duality. Essentially, particles change simply by being observed. The ramifications being that essentially if a tree falls in the forest, it may not actually make a sound if no one is around to hear it. We may in fact be living in a simulation. That huge UFO that traveled across the southwest U.S. that was filmed and seen by tens of thousands of people. Edit. Since a lot of people are asking, the event is usually called the Phoenix Lights. Been years since I read about it, but basically what appeared to be a huge craft flew around the southwest U.S. for a while. Tens of thousands of people saw it, including cops and off-duty military. People who it flew over reported that even though it was night and couldn't really be seen, it was large enough to block out the stars. There are many videos of it online. How I'm still single when my mom says I'm a handsome boy. The death of John Lang. He was a journalist who lived in Fresno, California, and he reported on the police extortion of the poor. The police started camping outside his house and several mysterious vehicles repeatedly circled his street. Eventually his house burned down and he died. His channel is on YouTube and his CCTV footage is all up there available for your perusal. After seeing how the Minneapolis PD tried to cover up George Floyd's death, it doesn't make this story seem like that much of a far cry from reality. Brian Schaffer went into a bar in Ohio in camera. Was never seen leaving and has been missing 14 years. It's unreal. I recommend True Crime Garage.